This month was supposed to mark the start of a murder trial in Olmsted County, but last month that trial was delayed for a sixth time. Attorneys are calling it shocking. It's been 5 years since the crime took place and the victim's family is demanding justice. ABC 6 News reporter Emily Pofall is here in our studio tonight with more after investigating for weeks why it's taken this long to get to trial. Emily.
This is 41-year-old Antonio Beasley. In 2018, he was charged with proximately causing the overdose death of 25-year-old Michael Eide. According to court documents, Beasley sold Eide heroin laced with fentanyl. Eide's family tells me they've patiently waited for this trial for years so that they can finally put him to rest. But they feel like they've been forgotten by the justice system.
My 2-year celebration of being clean is the last time I ever saw Michael alive.
As cousin Emily Hanson and mother Wendy Ciarletta go through Michael's old belongings,
Of course, he loved hats.
there's one thing they remember most.
No matter how deep Michael got in his addiction, he always wanted to get better.
Emily describes it as a constant battle, both her and Michael fighting their heroin addiction to be there for their family.
We were about 3 years apart, so I was that annoying little cousin that just followed him around and wanted to be just like him.
Now, 5 years after Michael's passing, Emily is fighting a new battle without Michael's help.
It's like he's dying all over again every time they push the trial.
Antonio Beasley was charged with third-degree murder for selling Michael the heroin that killed him. Michael overdosed in 2017. Beasley was charged in 2018. And now, after being rescheduled 6 times, the trial is set for March 2023. That's 6 years since Michael's death. Emily calls it delayed justice.
It feels like they just don't care. They don't care that Michael died. They don't care that he wanted to live.
There's an implicit right for victims and the families of victims of crimes to have the matter resolved.
Richard Painter is a University of Minnesota law professor and was chief ethics lawyer in George W. Bush's White House. He specializes in lawyers' ethics. Painter says under normal circumstances, murder trials may take 1 to 2 years to prosecute. He says he's never, even with the pandemic, heard of a murder trial in Minnesota delayed 6 years.
I'm very surprised.
But Painter also points out the court system's unprecedented backlog.
And that was a very challenging period for everyone, for the courts, for lawyers.
Olmsted County Attorney Mark Ostrom says the county currently has over 500 more cases open than they did in March 2020.
We're still not back to normal operations around here.
Adding that most attorneys are working with heavier than usual caseloads.
We've only got so many judges, we've only got so many courtrooms, we can only do so many trials.
He explains his office's priorities like this. Highest priority goes to cases where the defendants are in the county's jail, unable to make bail. And if a defendant officially asks for a speedy trial, their trial has to happen in the next 60 days.
At some point in the hierarchy of priorities, age of a case becomes a high priority. So in this case, this is probably the oldest case we have open in our system.
Ostrom says another reason Beasley hasn't gone to trial is because he's already in prison. Right now, Antonio Beasley is serving 16 years in Stillwater State Prison for a drug charge unrelated to this case.
He's going to be sitting there for 15 years. His priority dropped.
Painter says if local county attorneys' offices are struggling with caseloads, they should reach out to the Minnesota Attorney General's office for help. Attorneys can also dismiss cases with lesser charges where no one was hurt or killed to ease the backlog.
I mean, there are plenty of these cases that could be set aside.
Painter brings up 2 issues with delayed trials. One is that even though Beasley hasn't explicitly requested a speedy trial, he may still claim the court denied that right. And the second,
how can 6 years impact the prosecution of a case?
The evidence gets old. The witnesses lose their memory. In drug cases, you have a number of witnesses who may have a credibility problem to begin with.
Ostrom says that's a valid concern.
Frankly, even after a few weeks, people's memories start to fade a little bit.
But he believes his office has solid expert witnesses and can use body camera footage in this case. But after all these years and all these delays, Emily and Wendy say their goal is to get justice for Michael and put him to rest.
I haven't grieved.
What about the rights for my family? What about the rights for Michael? We've been waiting. Michael died 5 years ago.
Ostrom says his office should have communicated with Michael's family more throughout the delays.
It's on us to check in with the victim's family. We're all busy, but we need to take time out to do that. Our court system is just horribly backed up right now. And this is a poster child for how bad it has gotten.
Even though a new trial date is set, Emily and Wendy say they aren't holding their breath.
I feel like it's never gonna happen.
But they will keep fighting this battle for Michael, for the life he should have had, no matter how many years it takes. As of now, trial will begin March 27th. The Olmsted County Attorney's Office says all their witnesses and attorneys are ready to go for that week. But if there are 2 or 3 speedy trial requests at that same time, the trial could be pushed yet again. Laura.